Maya Thompson had always been a woman of power and purpose. As the CEO of a luxury hotel she had built from the ground up, she was no stranger to challenges. But that afternoon, as she entered her hotel's grand lobby, something felt off. The usual hum of activity was quieter than usual, and the staff seemed unusually tense. Maya wasn't one to get caught up in small details, but there was something in the air that made her pause. She brushed it off at first, focusing on the business at hand. She was making a routine visit to check on operations, as she often did. The hotel was her pride, and she knew the importance of keeping an eye on things. However, when she approached the front desk, she noticed the receptionist, Susan, acting strangely. Susan was usually upbeat, always greeting guests with a bright smile, but today her expression was stiff. Maya thought it was odd, but she assumed Susan was having a bad day. So she didn't think too much of it. She greeted Susan with a friendly smile, asking how things were going. But before Susan could respond, the front desk manager, John, walked up to her. His face was serious, and there was a noticeable nervousness in his eyes. "Ms. Thompson," John said hesitantly, "we need to talk." Maya's eyebrows furrowed. She didn't like the tone in his voice, and she certainly didn't like the way he was looking at her. "What's going on?" she asked, already sensing something was wrong. John looked at Susan, who quickly glanced away as if she was avoiding eye contact. Maya felt a pang of unease. This wasn't the usual interaction she had with her staff. She had always worked hard to build a positive relationship with her employees, and they respected her for it. "I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding," John said, his voice strained. "You're going to have to leave the property for now." Maya stared at him in disbelief. Leave the property? "What are you talking about?" John shifted on his feet, clearly uncomfortable. "There's been some confusion. We've been instructed that you need to vacate the premises. You're not allowed to stay here right now." The words hit Maya like a slap in the face. She was the owner, the CEO, the one who had poured her heart and soul into building this hotel. The idea that she was being told to leave by her own staff, no less, was beyond comprehension. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it. "John, are you serious?" Maya asked, her voice steady but filled with disbelief. "This is my hotel. I'm not going anywhere." John looked around nervously, as though unsure of how to proceed. "I don't want to argue with you, Ms. Thompson, but the decision has been made. You need to leave now." Maya was stunned. She had never been treated this way before. The weight of the situation began to sink in as she stood there, trying to understand what was happening. Her heart raced, but she refused to let her emotions take control. She had to stay calm. After all, she was the CEO. She couldn't let herself be intimidated, not by her own staff. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What's the reason for this?" Susan, who had been silent up until now, finally spoke, but her voice was shaky. It's not personal, Ms. Thompson. We were just following orders." "Orders?" Maya repeated, her confusion growing. "Whose orders?" The room was silent for a moment, and Maya's mind began to race. She couldn't think of anyone who would give such a ridiculous order. The only person who could issue a command like this was ... her. She was the only one in charge. She couldn't understand why her staff, the people she trusted and worked with every day, would betray her like this. Maya's anger started to bubble up, but she held it in. This was not the time to lose her temper. Instead, she took a deep breath and assessed the situation. She had to get to the bottom of this and figure out why her own team was turning against her. "I'll leave," Maya said calmly, though her voice was laced with authority. "But this isn't over. We will talk about this later." With that, Maya turned and walked out of the lobby, her mind swirling with confusion and frustration. As she stepped outside, the cool air hit her face, but it did. Nothing to calm the storm brewing inside her. She couldn't believe what had just happened. She had built this hotel with her own hands, and now she was being kicked out by the very people she had trusted to help her run it. As she stood on the sidewalk, trying to make sense of the situation, a rush of thoughts flooded her mind. Who was behind this? What did they hope to achieve by forcing her out of her own hotel? And most importantly, what was she going to do about it? Maya's sense of pride and justice flared up. This wasn't just about her being kicked out, it was about respect. It was about the people she had invested in and built a business with. She wouldn't let this stand. Whatever had just happened, Maya was determined to take control of the situation and find out who was responsible. This would not be the end of the story. In fact, it was just the beginning of something much bigger. Maya knew one thing for sure: she wasn't going down without a fight. Maya stood there for a few moments, staring at the doors of her hotel. The cold air on her face did little to cool the burning frustration inside her. She could hardly believe what had just happened. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and questions. How had it come to this? Why was she being treated like this in her own hotel? For a moment, she questioned everything she had worked so hard for, the years of blood, sweat, and tears that had gone into building her business from the ground up. The hotel wasn't just a property to her, it was her legacy. Yet, here she was, standing outside like an outsider. The worst part wasn't just being thrown out. It was the sting of betrayal. She had always been the kind of leader who believed in fairness, respect, and trust. She had poured her heart into the hotel, invested in her staff, and worked tirelessly to build a company that represented her values. To think that people who had been a part of that journey could turn against her so easily left her feeling blindsided as she walked away from the hotel's entrance. Maya couldn't help but replay the events in her mind. Was there something she had missed? She had always kept an open-door policy where her employees could come to her with their concerns, complaints, or feedback. There had never been any indication that anyone was unhappy or upset with her leadership. She couldn't understand how. This situation had gone from a normal visit to an outright confrontation. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was her assistant, Rachel, calling. Maya hesitated for a moment before answering. Rachel had been with her since the beginning and had always been someone she could rely on. If anyone could help her make sense of this, it was Rachel. Maya. What's going on? Rachel's voice was filled with concern. Heard what happened. Are you okay? I'm fine, Maya replied, though her voice betrayed the tension she was feeling. But I don't understand what just happened. They kicked me out of my own hotel, Rachel. My own staff. I don't know what to think anymore. Rachel paused for a moment, probably trying to process the information. That doesn't make any sense. Who told you to leave? What reason did they give you? Maya sighed. Jontha, front desk manager, said there had been a misunderstanding and that I needed to leave. But he didn't say why. He just kept repeating that they'd been instructed that I wasn't allowed to stay there. Instructed by who? Rachel asked, her voice growing more urgent. This doesn't sound right at all. I don't know, Maya admitted, her frustration mounting. They wouldn't tell me who gave the orders. It's like they were all in on it, but no one is willing to explain. I don't know if I should be angry or confused at this point. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line before Rachel spoke again. Maya, this sounds like a setup. Someone is behind this, and it's not just about you being thrown out. This is more than that. I know you, and I know you won't let this go. You need to find out who's responsible and why they did this. Maya stood still for a moment, the weight of Rachel's words sinking in. She had worked too hard, too long, to let something like this slide. She had built her business from the ground up, and it wasn't just a matter of pride, was about integrity. If someone had orchestrated this attack on her, she would find out who it was. She would not rest until she did. "I'm not letting this go," Maya said firmly, her voice filled with resolve. "I need to know what happened, and I'm going to find out who's behind this. But I need to stay calm. I can't let my emotions control me right now." Rachel's voice softened. "I know you, Maya. You're strong. But don't let this go too long without getting to the bottom of it. I'm here for you. Just let me know how I can help." "Thanks, Rachel," Maya replied, grateful for the support. "I'll keep you updated." As she hung up the phone, Maya took a deep breath, her mind now focused on finding answers. She could feel the wheels of determination turning in her head. This was no longer just about being kicked out of her own hotel. This was a test of her leadership, of her ability to stand firm and take control of a situation that was completely out of her hands. But Maya wasn't the kind of person to back down. She had faced challenges before, and she had always come out on top. This would be no different. She needed to find out who was behind this, why they did it, and what their end game was. Whoever had planned this was about to find out just how strong she was. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and intense investigation. Maya spoke with her trusted advisors, and together they began piecing together the puzzle. More she dug, the more suspicious things seemed. There were whispers of discontent among some of the senior staff, but no one had ever voiced their concerns directly to her. Maya began to feel that this wasn't just a random incident. It was something planned, something deliberate. The mystery deepened when Maya learned that several key members of the management team had been in close communication with each other in the days leading up to her being kicked out. It was clear that this wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a coordinated effort to undermine her. Authority, Maya's gut told her that someone at the top had been plotting against her for a while. She wasn't sure who yet, but she was determined to find out. She would uncover the truth, no matter what it took. She wasn't going to let anyone sabotage her hard work and dedication without facing the consequences with each passing day. Maya grew more certain of one thing. This was only the beginning of a battle she had to fight on her terms. The people who thought they could tear her down would soon learn that Maya Thompson wasn't someone to be underestimated. Asterisk, Maya woke up the next morning with a clarity she hadn't felt in days. The sting of being kicked out of her own hotel still lingered, but it was quickly replaced by a surge of determination. She knew she couldn't afford to let this moment of weakness define her. As the CEO, she had faced many challenges, but nothing quite like this. Now, she wasn't just fighting for her business, she was fighting for her dignity, her legacy, and the respect she had worked so hard to earn. After a quick breakfast, she took out her phone and called a trusted business advisor, Liam, who had been with her through thick and thin. He had a calm demeanor that balanced her high-energy leadership style. She knew that, in moments like these, Liam's perspective could help her think clearly. "Liam, I need your help," Maya said, her voice firm but composed. "I've been kicked out of my own hotel by my staff. Someone is behind this, and I need to find out who and why. I'm not going to let this slide." Liam was silent for a moment, letting the weight of her words settle in. "I'm on it." He finally replied, "We'll figure this out together. I've got some ideas on where to start." Maya spent the next hour gathering herself. She couldn't afford to let her emotions cloud her judgment. As much as she felt the anger bubbling inside, she needed to approach this strategically. She knew that the key to solving this mystery was in the details. She had built her business on a foundation of precision and clarity. And it was time to use that mindset to uncover the truth. Her first call was to Rachel, her assistant. Maya needed to know if there had been any unusual behavior or signs that something was off in the days leading up to her being kicked out. Rachel had been with her for years and had a keen eye for noticing things that others might overlook. "Rachel, did you notice anything strange recently?" Maya asked, pacing the room as she spoke. "Anything at all that could give me a clue about why this happened?" Rachel's voice came through the phone, calm but thoughtful. "Well, now that you mention it, there were a few things. A couple of the senior managers had been acting distant. They didn't seem as engaged in meetings, and I noticed some tension among them, but nothing that directly pointed to this. And then there was the issue with the staff. They seemed nervous and uneasy, but I didn't think much of it." Maya frowned, nervous and uneasy. "Could they have been afraid of something?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But there was definitely something brewing under the surface. They didn't talk to me directly, but I could tell there was a shift in the atmosphere." Maya let out a heavy sigh. "I need to get to the bottom of this, Rachel. I can't just sit back and hope it all blows over. I'm going to meet with the management team later today. I'll need your help to gather any records, emails, or anything that could give us a lead." "I'll get on it right away," Rachel responded. "You're not alone in this, Maya. We'll figure it out." With Rachel's support, Maya felt a renewed sense of resolve. She knew that uncovering the truth would take time, but it was a task she was ready to tackle head-on. She couldn't afford to be passive. This was her business, and she wouldn't let anyone undermine her efforts without facing consequences. As the hours passed, Maya dove deeper into her investigation. She met with her legal team to ensure that any actions she took would be within the bounds of the law. They discussed possible courses of action, including taking legal steps if necessary. But Maya wasn't focused solely on the legalities. She knew that a situation like this was about more than just the rules. It was about restoring her control and authority over her own company. Later that afternoon, she sat down with the management team. This was the moment of truth. She had always been direct with her staff, and she wasn't going to sugarcoat things now. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. The room was tense as Maya walked in. All of the senior managers were gathered. Around the table, their faces a mixture of apprehension and uncertainty. Maya took a seat at the head of the table, her presence commanding attention. The atmosphere was heavy, but Maya was determined to take charge. She wasn't going to let anyone intimidate her. She had worked too hard to get to this point. "I'm not here to play games," she began, her voice steady and calm. "Yesterday, I was kicked out of my own hotel. I need to know why. This kind of behavior will not be tolerated. I want answers, and I want them now." The managers exchanged uneasy glances, but no one spoke. Maya wasn't surprised. She had a feeling that they were all trying to figure out how to spin the situation in their favor. But she wouldn't let them. "I'll give you one chance," Maya continued. "Tell me what's really going on. Was this your idea? Who made the decision to kick me out of my own hotel?" For a long moment, the room was silent. Then, one of the managers, Sarah, spoke up. "It wasn't our decision, Maya. We were just following instructions from the top. We had no choice." Maya's mind raced. Instructions from who? She pressed. There was a long pause before another manager, James, reluctantly spoke. "There were talks about changes coming to the company. And some of us, well, we weren't sure how you would react. We were told that you might not understand, and it was safer to what?" Maya interrupted, her voice sharp. "To kick me out of my own property." James shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Look, Maya, things have changed around here. Some people didn't think you were still the right fit for the direction the company is heading in. There were talks about new leadership, and, well, we're trying to protect you from being blindsided." Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She had suspected that there were whispers behind her back, but hearing it from one of her managers confirmed her worst fears. There was a faction within her own company plotting to push her out. They had been planning this for some time. "I see," Maya said, her voice cold as ice.
Yeah.
"So you thought it was best to kick me out instead of being honest with me? To undermine my authority like that?" James swallowed hard but didn't answer. Maya didn't need him to. She could already feel the shift in the room, the uncomfortable tension as they realized that they had underestimated her. She wasn't just a CEO, she was a force to be reckoned with, and she wasn't going to let this betrayal slide. "I'm going to deal with this," Maya said firmly, standing up from the table. "All of you will be held accountable for your actions. Consider this meeting your final warning. And trust me, this isn't over." With that, Maya turned and walked out of the room, her mind already racing with plans for what would come next. She had learned the hard way that loyalty in business was rare, but she was determined to make sure that anyone who thought they could take her down would regret it. The real battle was just beginning. Maya sat in her office that evening, the weight of the day's revelations sinking in. The more she thought about the meeting with her management team, the angrier she became. What had started as a routine visit to check in on her hotel had quickly turned into a full-blown crisis, one that seemed to have deep roots in a betrayal she never saw coming. The realization that her own managers had plotted behind her back, undermining her authority and attempting to push her out, was hard to swallow. But Maya was not the type to wallow in anger. She was the type to take action. She looked over her notes from the meeting once again. The manager's admissions of a faction planning behind her back confirmed her suspicions. This wasn't a random act of disloyalty. This was a calculated attempt to disempower her, to strip her of the control she had spent years building. But now that she had uncovered the truth, she wasn't going to let them off the hook so easily. She was going to make sure they understood that betraying her was the worst decision they could have made. After the meeting, Maya had left the hotel feeling a strange mixture of anger and resolve. She knew the next steps would require her to act swiftly but carefully. She couldn't afford to let her emotions cloud her judgment. She needed a plan that would allow her to take back control and send a message to those who thought they could play her for a fool. Her first instinct was to sever ties with the traitors immediately. But Maya knew that firing people on the spot wouldn't solve anything. She needed to approach this with a clear strategy, one that would ensure she regained her authority and restored order. She needed to make it clear to her staff that no one, no matter how senior, was above the company's core values. The next morning, Maya convened a meeting with her legal and HR teams. She knew she needed to be strategic about how she handled the firings and restructuring. The last thing she wanted was a public battle that would tarnish her brand. She needed to act quickly, but with precision. Sitting across from her legal team, she explained her plan. "I want a complete review of the situation," she said, her voice steady but filled with resolve. "I need to know every conversation, every email, every whisper that has been going on behind my back. If we're going to move forward, I need all of this documented. And I need to know who was truly loyal to this company, who believed in the deep vision I built from the ground up, and who was just here to take advantage of the opportunity." Maya's legal advisor, Greg, nodded. "Understood. We'll get started on the review right away. But Maya, you should also think about how to communicate this to your other employees. The last thing you want is a fractured team. If you let this drag on too long, it could create even more division." Maya agreed. The last thing she needed was for the rest of her staff to feel like they were caught in the crossfire of a power struggle. She had to handle the situation with care, even if it meant making difficult decisions. The last thing she wanted was to have employees questioning their loyalty. But at the same time, she couldn't afford to let the ones who had betrayed her stay in positions of power. After the meeting with her legal team, Maya made a call to her HR director, Stephanie. She asked Stephanie to start preparing for an emergency all-staff meeting. Maya knew that she would need to address the entire team, not just the managers involved. She needed to reassure the loyal staff that the company was going to be stronger for it, that they could count on her to protect the integrity of the business. A few hours later, Maya stood in front of the entire hotel staff in the same conference room where she had confronted her management team. The room was filled with nervous energy. She could feel the tension in the air as everyone waited for her to speak. She could tell that some employees were still unsure about where her head was at, unsure of how the situation would play out. But Maya knew one thing for sure. The longer she waited to take control, the more this situation would spiral. She walked to the front of the room, her eyes scanning the faces of the staff. Everyone was waiting, their eyes trained on her. Maya's presence alone commanded attention, and she used that to her advantage. She didn't rush. She didn't shout. Instead, she began speaking in her usual calm but firm manner, ensuring that each word landed with purpose. First and foremost, I want to address the situation that took place earlier this week. What happened was a violation of trust, a betrayal of everything this company stands for. But I want to be clear, this is not about one person or one group of people. This is about the integrity of this hotel, this business, and what we are all here to build together. Maya paused for a moment, allowing her words to sink in. The room was silent, the staff listening intently. I've always believed in open communication, and I've always valued the people who work here. This company was built on mutual respect, hard work, and trust. But trust has been broken. It's been broken by a few individuals who thought they could undermine me and take control. I can't allow that to happen. The room shifted uncomfortably, and Maya knew she had their full attention. Some of the individuals involved have already been removed from their positions, effective immediately. But this is just the beginning. I'm going to rebuild this hotel from the ground up, and we're going to do it together. I'm committed to creating a workplace where everyone feels valued and where loyalty and hard work are rewarded. I need all of you on board for this. She could feel the mood in the room beginning to shift. Some employees looked relieved, while others looked uncertain. But Maya wasn't worried. She knew that the loyalty of her staff would ultimately shine through, especially once they saw her take action. I understand this has been difficult for all of us, Maya continued. But we will move forward with integrity and purpose. We will emerge stronger, and we will make this hotel the best it has ever been. I will make sure that those who betrayed us will never have the chance to do so again. As she finished speaking, Maya could feel the energy in the room change. There was no longer tension, but an undercurrent of determination. People were starting to believe in her once again. They could see that she wasn't backing down. She was in control, and she was going to rebuild this hotel, this business, from the ashes of betrayal. Now, let's get back to work, Maya concluded. Together, we'll show the world what this hotel and this team can truly do. With that, she left the conference room, her mind already focused on the next steps. There was much to be done, but Maya was more certain than ever that she would emerge victorious. The real challenge wasn't just dealing with the betrayal, it was about showing her staff, her community, and her competitors that Maya Thompson wasn't someone to be underestimated. She would lead them through this storm, and they would come out stronger on the other side. Maya woke up the next day with a renewed sense of purpose. She had spoken her truth, and the staff was beginning to adjust to the new reality. But now, it was time to take the next step in her journey, one that would make it clear to everyone involved that there would be no tolerance for disloyalty. The power shift had already begun, but she knew that rebuilding would require more than just removing a few bad apples. She had to restore trust, redefine expectations, and ensure that this betrayal never happened again. The first thing on her agenda was to meet with her legal team. She needed to ensure that all of her actions Moving forward would be airtight, and that she could protect her company from any potential backlash. Maya had always been a businesswoman who understood the importance of legal and financial strategy. And now, more than ever, she needed those skills to safeguard her interests. Sitting across from her legal advisor, Greg, and the head of HR, Stephanie, Maya laid out her plan. "I want to make sure that anyone involved in the conspiracy is held accountable," Maya said, her tone calm but resolute. "I don't just want them out of the company. I want to make sure that this is something they'll never forget, but I also need to protect the business. We can't afford any lawsuits or scandals, so I need to know what's legally safe to do here." Greg nodded, flipping through his notes. "We're looking at a couple of different approaches. You can choose to terminate them with cause, based on the breach of trust and company policy. This is the strongest case, but it's important that we have the proper documentation to back it up." Aya's mind raced, but she remained composed. "What's the best way to ensure we're completely in the clear?" "We'll start by sending formal notices," Greg explained. "We'll outline the reasons for the termination and ensure all the paperwork is in place. It might be worth considering an offer of a severance package to avoid any future legal disputes. This could give them some incentive to leave quietly." Maya thought about it for a moment. She didn't want to give anyone a chance to drag her through a long, drawn-out legal battle. "Fine," she said. "Offer them a package, but make it clear that this is their final chance to leave without further consequences. I want them gone immediately." As Greg made notes, Maya turned her attention to the next part of her plan, the staff restructuring. She had already begun the process of replacing the managers who had betrayed her, a key, but she knew that simply firing people wouldn't be enough. She needed a team she could trust, people who believed in her vision and shared her values. Rebuilding trust would take time, and she couldn't afford to make any more mistakes. "I want to personally interview every new hire," Maya stated. "I'm not leaving anything to chance. I need to make sure that everyone coming in understands what this company stands for and what I expect from them. Loyalty and transparency will be at the top of that list." Stephanie nodded, taking notes. "Understood. We'll put together a list of potential candidates, but I agree that having you involved in the process will set the tone for the entire company." Maya felt a sense of clarity settle over her. This was her chance to rebuild her team with people who would be truly loyal. She could shape the future of her company in a way that would leave no room for future betrayals. The old ways were gone, and a new era was beginning for both her hotel and her leadership. The next few days were a blur of interviews, meetings, and logistical work. Maya spent hours combing through resumes, speaking with potential candidates, and getting to know the people who might soon be a part of her team. She was careful to ask tough questions, focusing on character as much as skills. Loyalty, transparency, and a strong work ethic were the most important qualities she needed. She didn't just want employees. She wanted people who would help her continue to build something meaningful. As she met with candidates, Maya found herself feeling more and more optimistic. There were still so many good, hard-working people out there, people who believed in what she was trying to do. She began to feel a sense of camaraderie with some of the new hires, and it reminded her of the early days when she had first started her business. It was a refreshing reminder that, while betrayal had come from a few, there were many others who were ready to fight for the company's success. In the meantime, Maya also worked on improving the internal communication channels at the hotel. She didn't want any employee to ever feel out of the loop again. To prevent any future issues, she set up a series of regular town hall meetings with her team. These would be open forums where everyone, from the front desk staff to the managers, could ask questions, voice concerns, and stay informed about the hotel's direction. Maya wasn't just a leader. She wanted to be someone who truly understood the needs and concerns of her team. A few weeks later, Maya gathered the remaining staff in the conference room. This time, it wasn't just about firing people or punishing the traitors. It was about restoring hope and focusing on the future. She stood before them, feeling the weight of the last few weeks, but also the excitement of the journey ahead. I know the past few weeks have been difficult for everyone, Maya began, her voice firm but compassionate. But we've come out on the other side of this stronger, smarter, and more unified. We're building something new, something better. And I need each of you to be a part of that. She paused, letting her words sink in. She could see the shift in the room, the uncertainty beginning to fade, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. We are not just a hotel. We are a community, and it's time for us to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction. No more secrecy. No more dishonesty. From this point forward, we stand united. I'm committed to making this hotel the best it can be. But I need you, every single one of you, to be committed, too. There was a murmur of agreement from the staff, and for the first time in weeks, Maya felt a glimmer of the team spirit she had once cherished. It wasn't going to be easy. Rebuilding trust, both internally and with the public, would take time. But Maya had faith in her vision, and in the people who had stuck with her through thick and thin. We're going to show the world that we're stronger than ever, Maya said, her voice filled with determination. And we're going to do it together. With that, Maya left the conference room, a sense of pride swelling in her chest. The road ahead was long, but she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't alone in this fight anymore. She had a team, a loyal team, and together they were going to take this hotel business back to where it belonged. No betrayal, no obstacle could stop them now. The days following Maya's staff meeting were filled with action, but there was a quiet energy that surrounded her as she settled into her new role as both leader and reformer. The changes she had set into motion were beginning to take shape, but the pressure was palpable. There was more at stake now than ever before: her reputation, her business, and the trust of the people who had once stood by her, but who might now be uncertain of her direction. But Maya wasn't one to shy away from pressure. It was what had made her the successful CEO she was today. It wasn't long before the news of the shakeup at Maya's hotel spread. The media, always hungry for drama, picked up the story. Headlines screamed of the scandal. CEO kicked out of her own hotel and fired her entire staff, while pundits and business critics weighed in with their opinions. The reactions were mixed. Some called her a ruthless leader, applauding her for taking control. Others questioned whether she had overreacted, wondering if her actions would drive away loyal employees or even customers. For Maya, this media attention wasn't just noise, it was a double-edged sword. On one hand, she had to manage her public image and ensure that the right narrative was being told. On the other hand, she had bigger issues to focus on: rebuilding the company from the ground up and ensuring its future success. The attention was inevitable, but she knew she couldn't let it distract her from the task at hand. Her priority remained the same: restoring her hotel to its former glory, but with a new foundation of integrity and loyalty. Despite the whirlwind of media coverage, Maya chose to focus on internal matters. She didn't have time to appease the public just yet. What mattered most was the way her new hires were settling in. With each interview she had conducted, she had chosen only those who shared her values, people who understood that the heart of the company lay in trust and respect. Now it was time for those values to be put into practice. The first step in the rebuilding process was the implementation of a new, more transparent management structure. Maya began by promoting those who had shown exceptional dedication throughout the crisis. Some of the frontline employees, previously overlooked in favor of senior management, now had a chance to step up. Maya had always believed that leadership should come from the ground up, not just from the top down. She had witnessed firsthand how true loyalty often came from those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes. And she wanted to make sure that Wiley seed's texture that glides on smoothly and leaves a rich wireless seed, Caroline seed to Wiley seed. She had witnessed firsthand how Wiley seed, FHF, live sklees, Wiley seed, YSQID's seed, Wiley seed, but YS, it and we lies, we apocod. Those who had stuck with her through the storm were given the recognition they deserved. One of the first people Maya promoted was Jake, a young manager who had worked in the hotel's housekeeping department for years. Jake had been with the company since the very beginning, and Maya had always noticed his work ethic and dedication. He was quiet, reliable, and had a deep understanding of the hotel's operations. When Maya called him into her office to offer him a management position, he was visibly shocked. "Are you sure about this, Ms. Thompson?" Geek asked, his voice full of disbelief. Maya smiled. "Jake, you've earned this. The hotel is about more than just the top-tier management. It's about every single person who contributes to its success. I need people like you who know what it takes to keep things running smoothly. This place is more than just a business, it's a family, and you've been part of that family for a long time." Jake was speechless for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Thank you. I won't let you down." Maya believed him. She knew Jake would be a key player in her vision for the hotel. He wasn't the type of person to take things for granted, and he understood the importance of treating people with respect. It was these qualities that Maya now looked for in every person she promoted. It was time to elevate people who weren't just good at their jobs, but who embodied the very values that the hotel needed to restore, as Jake and others began stepping into their new roles. Maya made sure to emphasize the importance of a unified team. The hotel's new direction would be built on open communication and collaboration, with no room for secrets or hidden agendas. She instituted weekly team meetings where managers could share updates, voice concerns, and ensure that everyone was aligned with the company's goals. Maya was keenly aware that transparency had to be a cornerstone of the hotel's new culture. She knew it would take time to build trust, but it was the only way forward. Despite her efforts to stay focused on internal restructuring, Maya couldn't ignore the growing buzz in the media. The story of her firing the entire staff had become a viral sensation. Social media exploded with comments, opinions, and criticisms. Some people admired her decisive leadership, while others questioned her methods. It wasn't just media outlets that were talking about her. Customers, both regular and potential, were also weighing in. Some wondered if the hotel had lost its soul and whether the upheaval would affect the quality of service. Others were more supportive, applauding her for taking control of a difficult situation. Maya knew that she couldn't ignore the public's opinion forever. As much as she valued the internal restoration of her hotel, she needed to show the world that this was a turning point, not a collapse. She called a press conference, determined to set the record straight and share her vision for the hotel's future. Standing before the crowd of reporters, Maya took a deep breath before addressing the audience. She wasn't just speaking to the press. She was speaking to every person who had ever supported her, every person who had been loyal to the hotel, and every person who might be uncertain of its future. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "I know there has been a lot of attention surrounding recent events at the hotel, and I want to be clear what happened was difficult. But I also want to tell you that it was necessary. This hotel was built on the foundation of respect, loyalty, and hard work. When that foundation was shaken, I had to act decisively. I am proud to say that we are now rebuilding stronger, smarter, and more committed than ever to providing the best experience for our guests." She paused for a moment to let her words sink in. I've heard your concerns, and I want to assure you that the heart of this hotel is not just in the walls or the luxury. It's in the people who work here. The people who believe in this mission. And I am committed to ensuring that every guest who walks through our doors knows that we are here to provide more than just a place to stay. We are here to offer an experience, one that is rooted in trust, excellence, and mutual respect. As she spoke, Maya could feel the weight of the last few weeks lifting. This wasn't just about explaining what had happened. It was about reshaping the narrative. She wasn't some out-of-touch CEO who had made a rash decision. She was a leader who had faced betrayal and emerged stronger. She wasn't going to let the media define her. She would define her own story. I am more committed to this company than ever, Maya concluded. And I want you all to know that what happened is behind us. We are moving forward, together. This hotel will be better than it's ever been. And we'll prove that through the service we provide, the respect we show, and the excellence we achieve. The press conference ended with a flurry of questions, but Maya felt a sense of calm wash over her. She had said what needed to be said, and now it was time for her actions to speak louder than words. The hotel was in good hands, her hands, and she was ready to show the world what she could do. As the weeks went by, Maya's resolve only grew stronger. The turmoil of the past had not been easy to navigate, but with each passing day, the hotel began to feel more like the place she had always dreamed it would be, a beacon of excellence, not only in service, but in leadership, integrity, and unity. Maya had managed to rebuild a team that shared her vision, but she knew the real work was just beginning. Rebuilding trust, restoring confidence, and redefining the hotel's future required more than just internal restructuring. It was about reigniting the spirit of what had made this place special in the first place. The first signs of progress were small but significant. Word had started to spread that the hotel was back on track. New guests walked through the doors, drawn by the promise of a reinvigorated experience. But Maya knew that sustaining this momentum would require more than just marketing slogans. It would require an unwavering commitment to excellence at every level of the hotel's operations. She couldn't afford to let the media spectacle of the past overshadow the quiet work that needed to be done behind the scenes. Maya decided to take a more hands-on approach, spending time with every department from the front desk to housekeeping to the kitchen staff. She understood that the real work of a CEO wasn't in the boardroom or the luxury of her office. It was in the details, the heartbeat of the hotel. Maya didn't want to be just another figurehead. She wanted to be part of the team, part of the daily rhythm that made the hotel run smoothly. She would often arrive early in the morning to greet her staff as they prepared for the day. She didn't just walk around with her head down, ticking off checklists in her mind. Instead, she took the time to engage with everyone, asking questions, listening to concerns, and offering encouragement where it was needed. She spoke to the housekeepers as they cleaned the rooms, the chefs as they prepped meals, the front desk staff as they greeted new guests. Through these daily interactions, she was rebuilding not just a business, but a family. One of the most noticeable changes was in the morale of her team. It was clear that the people who had stayed loyal during the upheaval had become more invested in the hotel's success. They had seen Maya take action when needed, but they had also witnessed her willingness to listen, to learn, and to grow. That was the kind of leadership that inspired people to go above and beyond. Maya had shown them that her door was always open, and that meant more than any bonus or promotion could. She was a leader they could believe in, someone who valued their contributions and was willing to fight for the success of the hotel, not just for herself, but for them as well. Maya's next step was to further instill her values of transparency and loyalty into the culture of the hotel. She introduced a monthly review system where every department was held accountable for its performance, and employees were encouraged to provide feedback on the company's direction. She also made sure that everyone from the kitchen staff to the managers had access to the same level of communication. No one was left out of the loop. Everyone had a voice, and everyone's opinion mattered. Maya understood that when people felt heard, they felt valued, and that kind of respect was vital to fostering a sense of unity. But it wasn't just about internal changes. Maya knew that for the hotel to truly recover and thrive, they needed to prove to the public that they were back on their feet. She worked closely with the marketing team to create a new branding campaign, one that wasn't focused on the scandal, but on the resilience and commitment to excellence that the hotel had shown in the wake of adversity. The campaign was built around a simple but powerful message: a new era of hospitality begins here. It wasn't just a marketing slogan. It was a promise, a commitment to guests that they would receive the very best the hotel had to offer. Maya ensured that the campaign highlighted the hard work and dedication of her staff, showcasing their stories and the challenges they had overcome together. She wanted the world to see that this hotel wasn't just a place to stay, was a place of rebirth, of second chances, and of the kind of service that went beyond expectations. The impact was immediate. Guests who had once been hesitant about returning were now booking rooms again. Many were curious to see the changes for themselves, but they quickly realized that the hotel was no longer the place it had once been. The changes Maya had implemented were visible in every corner of the property, whether it was the warm, welcoming attitude of the front desk staff, the exceptional quality of the meals in the restaurant, or the pristine condition of the rooms. The level of service had been elevated, and Maya's vision was slowly becoming a reality. But the true test of the hotel's success came when a major event was booked, a high-profile conference that brought in dozens of international guests. This was the opportunity that would show everyone what Maya had been working toward. The pressure was immense. This event had the potential to either make or break the hotel's reputation. If it went well, it would be the perfect way to showcase the transformation Maya had led. It went poorly, it could send the message that the hotel was still in disarray. Maya wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. She worked with her team tirelessly in the days leading up to the conference, fine-tuning every detail. She was hands-on, meeting with the event coordinators, speaking with the chefs, and checking in on the logistics. There was no room for error. Maya knew that the success of this event could change everything. If it went off without a hitch, it would signal that the hotel was truly back on track and ready to move forward. The day of the event arrived, and Maya watched as the hotel staff worked in sync, moving seamlessly from one task to the next. Every person, from the banquet staff to the IT technicians, was operating at peak performance. There was an energy in the air, one of confidence and professionalism. Maya felt a surge of pride as she walked through the venue, seeing the hard work of her team come to life. She knew that this was the culmination of everything she had been working for, everything she had been fighting for. When the event was over, Maya stood at the entrance, watching as the guests departed with smiles on their faces. The feedback was overwhelmingly positive. The conference had been a huge success, and it was clear that the hotel had exceeded everyone's expectations. The event was a testament to Maya's leadership and the hard work of her team. The hotel had not only survived the turmoil, had thrived. It had emerged from the storm stronger, more unified, and more committed than ever to providing exceptional service. That evening, Maya sat alone in her office, looking out at the city's skyline. The road had been difficult, but the rewards were already beginning to show. She had taken back control of her business, and in doing so, had proven that even in the face of betrayal, there was always a way forward. But Maya knew that this was just the beginning. She had a long way to go, but she was more confident than ever. She had built something solid, something unshakable. The hotel was on its way to becoming a symbol of resilience, and she was the one leading it there. As she sat back in her chair, Maya smiled. knowing that this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one that would define the future of her hotel and her legacy. The months that followed were unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. The storm had passed, but its lessons were burned into her memory forever. She had gone from being humiliated, thrown out of her own hotel, to reclaiming her power in the most decisive way possible. The betrayal from her staff had tested her patience, her leadership, and even her faith in people. Yet, in the end, she had turned that pain into strength, rebuilding not only her business, but also herself. The hotel, once the center of scandal, was now thriving. The new staff she carefully selected brought with them a renewed sense of energy and commitment. Guests were returning in record numbers, many of them curious to see the hotel that had survived such a dramatic upheaval. What they found was a place transformed, polished, professional, and full of warmth. Maya had instilled her values into every corner of the building, from the way the doorman greeted guests to the way housekeeping staff treated one another with respect. For Maya, it wasn't just about the business anymore. It was about legacy. She had learned that leadership was not just about being in charge, but about being courageous enough to make hard decisions heavy, if those decisions meant standing alone. By firing her entire staff, she had shocked the industry. But she had also made a statement. No one, not even her own employees, could strip her of the respect she deserved. The media, once critical of her decision, began to shift their narrative. Business magazines called her the CEO who wouldn't be silenced. Women's leadership panels invited her to speak about resilience and empowerment. She became a symbol of strength, especially for women of color in business, who often faced doubly harsh challenges. Maya knew her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every person who had ever been underestimated, dismissed, or betrayed, only to rise stronger than before. But despite the praise, Maya remained grounded. She never forgot the lesson. That betrayal can come from the closest of places. She didn't let it make her bitter, but she let it make her wiser. She surrounded herself only with people who shared her values, and she nurtured loyalty with fairness. She knew she couldn't control everything, but she could control how she led, with integrity, with courage, and with an unshakable belief in herself. One evening, long after the guests had retired to their rooms and the lobby was quiet, Maya walked through the halls of her hotel. She paused by the grand staircase, looking up at the chandelier that glowed softly above. The silence was comforting, almost symbolic. She realized then that this place wasn't just a business, it was a reflection of her journey. Every stone, every light, every corner carried the weight of her story. From betrayal to triumph, Maya Thompson had proven something, not just to her staff, not just to her guests, but to herself. She was unbreakable. And as she turned to head back to her office, a small smile curved across her face. The world had seen her fall, but it had also witnessed her rise. The legacy of that rise would live on, far beyond the walls of her hotel. It would echo as a story of strength, of resilience, and of a woman who refused to bow down. Even when her own people tried to force her out, her journey was no longer just about survival. It was about victory. And Maya knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning of everything she was destined to build.